Hello survivors and welcome to Survivor's Guilt, the only channel that determines your odds of surviving 2017's Open Water 3 cage dive, so stay tuned till the end for your survival stats. I'm your sharp-dressed slasher turned horror host, GhostFake, and today we will be taking a look at 2017's cage dive turned open water sequel, Open Water 3 Cage Dive. But first, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button like your girlfriend is cheating on you with it, and warm up that subscribe button by lighting it on fire. And hit that share button to let everyone know not to cage dive with sharks but no cage. And go ahead and check out patreon.com/survivorsguilt. For just $1 a month, you can gain access to exclusive content and early access to my regular content. So if $1 falling out of your pocket over the course of a month wouldn't bother you, go ahead and drop it our way at patreon.com/survivorsguilt. And special thanks to this video's sponsor, King Needgore.
Meet Corey G. He's 26 years old. A man of God. A man of fitness. Look at him go! And he's the most wholesome content creator on YouTube. Corey seemed to have it all figured out.
Hello all of you beautiful people out there. It's your old pal Corey here. I just got a package in the mail. Probably from one of my loving fans out there. Y'all are the best.
He made the mistake of watching a movie.
Gee willikers, it's a blank DVD case.
A movie that would change his life forever.
What the
From the creators of Crippling Anxiety and Deafening Depression, brings you a new chapter in horror YouTube content. One man. A bunch of weird horror movies just aching to be reviewed. Oh yeah. Subscribe to King Needgore.
If you like Survivor's Guilt, chances are that you'll really get a kick out of King Needgore. Now I hope you like not being cast on a new reality TV show on account of the fact that you're dead, cause this movie is getting spoiled. Open Water 3 Cage Dive, written by Stephen Lister and Gerald Rascionato, and starring Joel Hogan, Josh Potthoff, Megan Peta Hill, and Pete Valley. Open Water 3 Cage Dive is about two brothers and their girlfriend who go cage diving for their audition tape to get cast on a reality TV show, but get stranded at sea when a rogue wave capsizes their boat, which leaves them to swim amongst the great white sharks with no cage. We open up to some text that lets us know that this movie is found footage, followed by a diver finding the footage to be found in the form of a waterproof video camera, before we jump over to news footage about the Australian cage diving boat that got capsized by a rogue wave, where we first hear about our main protagonists as they are still missing. We then cut to 1 week later and an interview with the diver who found the camera, where he discusses what he found on it. We then get our first glimpse of Jeff and Josh, the two brothers that make up 2/3 of our crew, who are testing their camera in a bathtub before we get introduced to Megan, Jeff's girlfriend, and the last member of our trio. This is where we find out that they are auditioning for a reality TV show called Guts and Glory, and for their audition tape they will be going cage diving in Australia. We also find out that Jeff has a medical condition and that the show that they are auditioning for does not allow contestants with medical conditions. We then get introduced to Greg by way of interview, who is Josh and Jeff's cousin in Australia, who also then appears in the footage when he picks them up at the airport and then takes them sightseeing in Sydney. And later that night, Greg throws a party at his house and we find out that Jeff is planning on proposing to Megan, as yet another way to get the producers of Guts and Glory to choose them.
Plan to propose to my future wife, Megan, on the show.
How romantic. Using your engagement as a ploy to get on a reality TV show. That sounds like a recipe for 90% of reality TV shows. But Megan shows up before Jeff can finish, and so he hides the camera and greets her. But when he leaves the room and the camera running, we see that Megan also has a thing with Josh, setting up the unnecessary love triangle that turns these characters from likable to unlikable in just about 30 seconds. The group flies to Adelaide, and Jeff tells Josh about his plans to propose to Megan during the dive, which comes as a shock to Josh. The next day, the adulterous trio get ready to dive and they board the boat and head to the dive site, and the crew starts attracting the sharks. Our trio enters the cage and starts recording the sharks and themselves, and after a while, they hear something odd somehow, and they check out what's happening topside, when Josh catches on camera a rogue wave that overturns and sinks the boat. And we get our first 2 deaths of the movie here in these 2 who are sinking lifelessly into the meat bank at deposits 1 and 2. And when our trio surfaces, they swim over to help these 2, but this dude is definitely on his way into the meat bank at deposit number 3. And when he's unresponsive, they try to convince the girl to swim away from him and out of the blood, but she refuses, which turns out to be fine when she joins deposit number 3 in the meat bank when a shark takes her at deposit number 4. They see another dude in the distance, they tell him to start swimming towards them, and in one of the best jump scare sequences, this dude ends up in the meat bank at deposit number 5. The trio hang out in the water, having nowhere else to hang, getting repeatedly reminded that the sharks are still around. They find a life jacket that they can all hold onto to stay afloat, and pass the time talking about the stories they'll tell when they are found. And we are then reminded that Jeff has something wrong with his heart. We cut to 7 hours after the capsize and a storm rolling in, and then cut to 11 hours after the capsize, and luckily their camera has night vision, and they are able to see something floating by them, which turns out to be an inflatable raft. They pull the line and the raft inflates and the 3 of them climb in. In the raft they find supplies including rations and flares. The group sends off their first flare before going to sleep for the night. That night, while the boys are asleep, Megan records a message to her family in the case that they don't make it out alive, letting her family know that she loves them, and confessing that she's hurting both Jeff and Josh.
I'm hurting both of them.
But in the middle of her death raft confession tape, something pushes against the raft and she wakes up the boys to find out what it was. When they look out of the raft, they notice that the sharks haven't left their side, before they also notice a lady floating on some debris. They bring her into the raft and try to nurse her back to health while Megan repeatedly comments on how cold she is and how they need to warm her up. Megan grabs a flare and Josh asks her what she is doing, and Megan tells him that they need to do something because this girl is so cold. And in one of my least favorite scenes, the brothers argue with her not to use the flare, and when they try to take it from her, it goes off. Now, this could have been done better if they would have portrayed Megan as not thinking clearly or delirious from being lost at sea for the day. But just moments before this, she was confessing the fact that she was cheating on the brothers. Either way, chaos ensues as the raft burns with the power of the flare, and our trio of pyros watches in horror as Barbie Q grills her way into the meat bank at deposit number 6. We cut to 16 hours after the capsize, and it's now nearly 5 a.m., and the group starts playing the blame game about who brought them there in the first place, before Josh calls Megan out for her infidelity. Jeff picks up on what Josh said, and the other 2 try to backtrack. Jeff puts 2 and 2 together and decides to swim off without them, since they deserve each other. But Megan cries shark, which brings Jeff and Josh back together for a game of Save Megan. Josh puts the camera under the water, and we get another really great shark scare from this movie. They try to get Megan to swim to them, but instead she gets dragged under by the shark, which carries her into the meat bank at deposit number 7, leaving only her busted up goggles in its wake. Cut to a couple hours later, Jeff now has the camera and is spending his time antagonizing Josh for him and Megan ruining his life, all whilst trying to hide his Australian accent.
I'm making the video now, look.
But when the 2 brothers start fighting, Jeff lets go of the camera and his life when his vague heart condition takes him into the meat bank at deposit number 8.
Hey, stay with me.
A couple hours later, and we see that Josh has retrieved the camera and decided that he didn't want to carry his dead brother anymore and lets him go. And a short time after that, Josh decides to use the last of the battery to record a video deathery, telling his parents he misses them and that he's sorry for what he did to Jeff and Megan, while he gets pounded by the waves. Josh then sees a helicopter in the distance and begins yelling at them to help him, but he instead finds help in the unlikeliest of places. When another shark helps him into the meat bank at deposit number 9. We then cut to an exit interview from Greg, who comments on the last moments of the trio, and the movie ends. So now, to find out, what are your chances of suffering survivor's guilt? This is where we take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine your odds of surviving this movie. And this movie's stats are brought to you by King Needgore, so go check out his channel when you're done with this video, and subscribe if you like what you see. We start off our meat bank deposits with these 2 floaters sinking into the meat bank at deposits 1 and 2. We then get Face Guy head trauming into the meat bank at deposit number 3, and this girl getting carried off into the meat bank at deposit number 4. We then get this guy getting intercepted into the meat bank at deposit number 5, and then Barbie Q flame broiling in at deposit number 6, followed by Megan crying shark at deposit number 7, and then we get Jeff succumbing to his unspecified heart condition at deposit number 8, and we wrap up our meat bank deposits with Josh false hoping into our meat bank at deposit number 9. Now let's take a look at our survivors. We've got Greg, which means that out of a total of 10 characters characters, only one survives, giving you a 10% chance of surviving this movie. Given those odds, how would you make sure that these sharks don't go hungry? Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time on my channel, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And consider checking out patreon.com/survivorsguilt. For just $1 a month, you can help us here at Survivors Guilt make this a full-time gig. And a huge thanks to my patrons. We've got Chris D, Sackhead Ed, Bubba T, Maximilian H, Macabre Python 18, Video Creep, Poppy Ulio, Valentina P, James H, Mintrix, Brady D, Matthew, Vids for You, and Mr. Nightmare Fuel. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. I seriously appreciate it, and I do plan on starting up that VHS series real soon. I'm trying to get ahead of the wave, so to speak. Once Shark Month wraps up, then I'll probably go back to doing those VHS series at least once a month, if not a little bit more often than that. Alright guys, now we'll see you here next week when we visit one of my favorite shark movies. But until then, thanks, and don't die.
Meet Corey G. He's 26 years old, a man of God, a man of fitness. Look at him go! And he's the most wholesome content creator on YouTube. Corey seemed to have it all figured out.
Hello, all of you beautiful people out there. It's your old pal Corey here. I just got a package in the mail. Probably from one of my loving fans out there. Y'all are the best.
He made the mistake of watching a movie.
Gee willikers, it's a blank DVD case.
A movie that would change his life forever.
What the
From the creators of Crippling Anxiety and Deafening Depression, brings you a new chapter in horror YouTube content. One man, a bunch of weird horror movies just aching to be reviewed. Oh yeah. Subscribe to King Need Gore.